Okay, this is a video of some RVF400 carburetors that I just got done reassembling. I tried to be as meticulous as possible as far as reassembling. It's true, they're not back in the bike, so I don't know if they really work and I put them together properly, but this is just sort of a reference video to show orientation and I guess placement of various components on the carburetors. So they're a bit of a puzzle to put back together. Taking apart is easy. It's always putting it back together in the right position. So what I've gone ahead and done is just labeled everything, and I think that's the biggest confusion for these carburetors is all the parts look very similar, and it's a matter of knowing what to put where, because there are 4 carb bodies. And so the basic landmark is which way do they fit on the bike. And so forward direction is here, and the way I kind of remember is when I'm sitting on my bike, this is the forward front of the bike, and to the left is the throttle wheel. So this affects, of course, the butterflies. I'll have to flip it over to show you, but in any case, what I did was, before disassembling is just label the crap out of everything. Now, this is a red Sharpie. It doesn't stay on so well. It'd be better if I used paint or some other way of marking, something more permanent. Because, you will go through a cleaning process with solvent and whatnot, and it will easily remove this Sharpie stuff. Another way to do it is maybe just scratch marks in with a like a carbide tip scribe or something like that, but just to basically mark everything. When I disassembled, I bagged everything separately, so if I knew everything was from carburetor 2, I put that all in one bag. Carburetor 1 went into a separate bag, and all that. Some of the components don't tie to a carburetor body per se, so for example, the choke assembly like these linkage bars and things like that. These I basically referenced, you can maybe mark them front or back, and you could bag them that way. The back section of the carburetor assembly is basically where all the tubing goes, as you can see. This is the back side of it flipped over. So let's flip it back this way. Sorry, I'm flipping around quite a bit, but basically give you some shots of what's going on and relative positions of everything. So this left side of the bike again, my left hand being the front of the bike. This is how it all assembles. This is the choke, and this is the connecting bar. You can see that the flange here is facing forward, and the far end here couples onto the choke plungers. And you can see those brass bits sliding in and out. Let's see if I can focus better. Yeah. So that kind of stuff you can figure out even though maybe you didn't label it so well. So, and I guess that's roughly an overview. Hopefully this helps anyone who's trying to reassemble the carburetors of an RVF400 NC35 after splitting, because it is rather complicated. When I did take apart, I didn't undo any of these synchronization screws. I left them in place and just slid everything apart. But definitely do this in a clean, well-lighted place. I strongly suggest cleaning the carbs as much as possible. Before disassembling, documenting it. Maybe you don't need to document. You can rely on this video, because this should basically be the roadmap that shows you how to properly reassemble everything. There are a lot of small parts to lose, like little shims, washers, O-rings, things like that, and you definitely don't want to lose those, because it's very easy to miss them. Primarily, I want to say these mixture screws here. Mixture screw inside there is a small spring, a shim, and a tiny O-ring. and when you withdraw this, it's easy to lose or miss it. They'll actually maybe stay in there and you won't see it. And then also, before you remove these, you want to put your screwdriver in here and tighten it and count the number of turns it takes down to 1/8 of a turn resolution. And the way I did that, I just carefully marked, sort of the starting position. Like, for example, here, that would be a starting. Well, let me mark this piece of the pie here, of the screw. Okay, and then this tick mark, and then I would screw it in, turn it clockwise, screw it in until it bottoms out. Don't over tighten it. You don't want to smash anything or jam anything, but basically once it kind of firmly stops, you mark down that number. How long did it take you to turn clockwise until it bottomed out? And then you can mark it. For example, I marked it on my throttle body. This one was 1.75. Actually, write it on a piece of paper so you don't forget. So for example, this would be carb 1. It took 1.75 turns to turn in. The factory default setting is 1 5/8 or 1.625. I had measured 1.75 on mine. So somebody had been in these carbs and done an adjustment prior to me. So I basically set them back to what I had measured. This one had actually measured 1.75 also. This one 1.5. And this one was actually, I think, a 2.0. So there can be some variation there. So the nominal, like I said, is 1.65 or 1 5/8. I reset mine to what they were before I tore down and reassembled my carburetor. So that's it in a summary. Post whatever additional information you'd like. I'm willing to share whatever I learned from my experience, and hopefully this saves you a lot of frustration and time, because I definitely spent a lot of time and frustration going through this as my first carb teardown and split, and the RVF400 definitely isn't a good one for beginners or rookies like me to start on. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the result. We'll know for sure once they're reinstalled. Thanks.